She said in compromise, "My father wants a son, and you have many sons, but you do not have a girl yet. Since my father will not accept any bride price from you, if I have a son, he will belong to my father. But if a girl, she will be yours." Page 25 of The Joys of Motherhood by Buchi Emecheta. In today's video, we're going to be doing analysis of two principal female characters in this book, The Joys of Motherhood by Buchi Emecheta. This is a one-of-a-kind, literally book that has transformed a lot of things in the African society. So basically, I picked out these two characters because they are the ones that reflect the title of the book, The Joys of Motherhood. So like, we're going to be treating their qualities, their perspective on being feminine and being a woman. So if today's first time meeting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And if you have already subscribed, thank you for coming in once again. So today is going to be really interesting. I'm so excited. So don't forget to like, subscribe. So first of all, we're going to start with the plot of this movie. So obviously this movie was written with this plot in Nigeria, Lagos, and also a village called Ibuza. So basically, let's get on to it. So I'm picking these two characters because to me they are really dear to me, and they're actually the people that actually reflect the reason why this book was given the name The Joys of Motherhood. So should I give you a little story of when I read this book? So I read this book when I just finished my SS3. I wrote my WAEC. I was bored at home. I didn't have a phone, so I was reading. So I read this book, and then it kind of like changed my perception about a lot of things. This is like my all-time best book, one of my best books. So I cried at the end. So I'm like, why have a lot of people not read this book? Why have a lot of people not heard from this woman? Because I believe she's a really great writer that we are not really speaking of the way we should. So like, how do people that this intelligent to come up with something this classic exist? Nnu Ego was the daughter of Ona, that is Obimuna's daughter, the daughter that he refused to give out to any man to marry, even Nwankwocha body. So if you have read this book, you realize that this book started with Nnu Ego trying to commit suicide at the Kata Bridge. So like I said, I'm going to start with Ona. So Ona's life then, during the time that this book was written, at least there were places in Nigeria that have not been developed. So Ona was a woman, a young woman, pretty, beautiful. Her father was called Obiumuna. He was a chief. So the father didn't have a son. So he literally carried Ona to every single place he was going to. People found it really absurd that he said he wasn't going to marry his daughter off, no matter who asked. He wanted her to be in the house, and then he wanted her to give birth to kids that would retain his name. So he was never ready to marry his daughter off. So even at that, Ona grew up to become really pretty, stubborn. Onkocha liked her, he loved her. And then he was a chief. He was really strong and well addressed as a very wealthy man as of then. And having a woman to always reject him wasn't something he really dealt with in a good way, because every woman he has always asked, have always wanted, like, he always gets a yes. So when it came to Ona's turn, Ona was like a no, I don't want to marry you, I don't want to have anything to do with you, I told you I can't marry you, about the and stuff. But it triggered him that why is Ona rejecting him? But the rejection has like its limits, because he literally used to visit her in the house. Like, they were cordial in the sense that they had intimate relationship, but Ona still didn't want to marry him. And then let me give a briefing of how she got the name Ona. The name Ona was actually given to her by Onkocha Abadi, because it happened that the way her father always carries her around, so they were like teasing the dad one of the meetings, why do you always carry your daughter around like your Ona? Ona means jewel. Like, Ona is an Igbo phrase that means jewel in English. So he was like, oh, is she your Ona? From there, they said to call her Ona. Abadi said to call her Ona. So she grew up, he wanted to marry her, he loved her and stuff, but Ona still didn't agree. So at some point, Ona became pregnant. But the father and Abadi, we started, was disputes between them. The differences, they never actually resolved their differences, because the both of them wanted her for themselves. So she was like, she told Abadi, if I give birth to a daughter, you can have her, but if I give birth to a son, it belongs to my father. So that was literally like what happened before Ona gave birth to Nnu Ego. So I'm going to stop here. Nnu Ego grew up to become as just as beautiful as the mother. Before she actually grew up, Ona was already dead because Ona became pregnant again, gave birth to another son that died, and also she didn't live past that, so she also died. So Unego grew up to become a really, really pretty young lady, and her mother really wished for her to be able to make her decision and her choices. But her mother wasn't alive to like bring her up. It was just her dad. So the scene where she was growing up, she's always the one to bring drinks to her father. She was really, really loved by her father because her mother was a mistress, but the father really loved her. So this is like the story of a man and his mistress. I don't want to like go for that. So as time went on, he's always close to his dad, always stays close to him, and she always reminds the dad of the mom that's Ona. So it kept on happening to some point that serious there coming. The father was rejecting. He really wanted the best out of the best to marry her. And that was when Amatoko came for her hand in marriage, and the father married her off in a bliss, and then it was a wonderful celebration. And in Igbo land, we consider this celebration as like one of the highest because he really did a lot. He threw party. He made it like a royalty kind of thing. So Unegu married off. Okay, before all this thing happened, there was a time she became really sick. It turned out that she had a chi. What I mean chi is a personal god. So her chi was actually the woman they buried Mankocha Abadi's first wife with. It turned out that the first wife died on the night when Mankocha was recovering from his hunt after he almost died, and he was sleeping with Ona. So the noise and everything actually depressed the woman, and then the next morning it was heard that she became really ill and then that she died. So they had to bury her with one of her slaves. So Uncle Abadi didn't want to do it, but because of custom and tradition, he had to. So I'm going to be explaining where the chi came in from. So the slave, the name of the first wife was Agoma, and her slave was supposed to be buried with her in the night after. Her slave was supposed to be buried with her. So it turned out that the slave girl didn't want to die either. So this was a passage. Just listen while I read. She kept begging for her life, much to the annoyance of many of men standing around. The women stood off far, for this is a custom they find not pleasing. The poor slave was pushed into the shallow grave, but she struggled out, fighting and pleading and appealing to her owner, Abadi. Then Abadi's eldest son cried in anger, "So my mother does not deserve a decent burial. Now we are not to send her slave down with her, just because the girl is beautiful." So saying, he gave the woman a sharp blow on the head of the cutlass he was carrying. "Go down like a good slave," he shouted. "Stop that," Abadi roared. So that was, and then she said to Abadi, "Thank you for this kindness, Wankocha, the son of Abadi. I shall come back to your household, but as a legitimate daughter, I shall come back." So, if you if you like lost, so this was actually like what happened. How I shall come back as a legitimate daughter. That was Unego. So Unego's chi was a slave girl. So it turned out that Unego became really sick at some point in her life that they had to get her a doctor. So it turned out that it was the slave woman, and she actually came out with the same scar that the slave woman had when the boy hit her with the cutlass. So she came out with the same scar like the slave girl had when she was dying. So all this literally like interfered with Unego's life and her perception and everything. So when she got better as a child, before she got married, when she was living, her father packed everything for her that belonged to her chi, everything, so praying for her chi. When she got there, she couldn't give birth to her own child. So basically it felt like her chi was punishing her. So as that was happening, it turned out that she was sent out of her husband's house because she was breastfeeding one of her husband's children, and then she became really slim, and the maltreatment was too much because her husband had to marry another wife. So she left, came back to her father's house, and eventually married another man that stayed in Lagos. That's in Naife, who she had children for, a lot of children. I don't remember the counts, but she had a lot of children. I think like 8 kids for. She eventually like died on her own while she was walking down the stream when she later returned back to the village. So in the life of Ona, she was a woman that knew what she wanted, but at the same time she felt like she had to honor her father above all things, regardless of love and anything that could come in between. Really respected her father and really wanted to carry on her father's lineage, and she wasn't pushed by the society to change her mind or become anything otherwise. She knew what she wanted and she did what she wanted. But in the case of Unego, she was born the quiet version of her mother, I would say, because she was brought up by her father and her father's wife. She grew up to become soft and wanted more because every time our daddy prayed for her, the father usually says, God will bless you with children, you will have plenty children of your own and all. So she felt like motherhood was the best gift she could ever give herself in life. So when she couldn't have a child in her first marriage, she felt like she failed like a woman, and then she left, and then she got married again, and she had kids, and then she eventually died without reaping the fruit of her labor. And all these things wired her perception about life. And at the end of the book, she refused to give people children because she never believed that kids were like a blessing. Because so Ona, I believe, they both knew what they wanted. Ona and Nnu Ego knew what they wanted. They were very obvious, and they knew their needs, and they went for it. But the difference is that Ona understood the society and the needs, and she knew what she wanted to give. But Nnu Ego didn't understand the difference. She was confused most of her life, and she eventually became a mother, which she actually really did a good job at. Yet she felt like she was going to be fulfilled when she eventually have children of her own, and like that's the only fulfillment and the only thing she has ever desired for. And she eventually got it, but no, she didn't get the fulfillment. She eventually died lonely, really lonely. So it's just so to see their perceptions about life were different, and this was caused by how they grew up, where they grew up, and who their parents were. So unlike Ona, that had a father that was open-minded and didn't mind what people said, and he just wanted to like focus on his life and his daughter, and he didn't want to give his daughter out, and he was sure about it. Abadi believed in the institution of marriage and believing that having children for a man is everything. So I think that was where the two things became different. I think they would have actually merged it together if Nnu Ego had her mother and her father. I think she would have done way better in life, because I think her mommy would have taught her how to also find fulfillment for herself, at the same time be a mother and also be a wife. Not think that motherhood is going to give you the whole fulfillment you think life was going to give you, because that was where she broke down, because she felt like the expectations she put on it wasn't what she got. So I feel like if she had more to herself, if she at least was working, she wouldn't have felt so depressed at the end of her life, because all her kids eventually left her. She was left all alone. So I think if she had lived most of her life trying to also figure out what she actually wants apart from having children, and also she would have lived longer, and even if she didn't, she would have been more fulfilled. So what I'm trying to say is that motherhood is a blessing, but at the same time, you're a person. You should also like find your thing, find your niche. Like the same, we need to find your thing, be able to embrace yourself. What are you building for yourself apart from being a mother and a wife? Do you get? So what are you doing? Are you doing more for yourself? Are you trying to expand your life? Are you trying to be a working mother? Are you trying to, what are you teaching your children? What are you carrying down to them? Nnu Ego actually really did her best. She worked, she owned the stores, like she really did pretty job just send her kids to school, and literally at the end of the day it cost her, like she didn't really get anything for it. And then when she died, her son was abroad. I didn't even send her money for a long time. Didn't even send her money at all. Came back to give her the best burial of her death, because she wasn't alive. You get? So I think we're all people. We all should at least find what makes us happy. The thing that's going to keep you fulfilled is, what do I do? What do I like doing? What exactly am I here for? Do I have a purpose apart from being a mother, apart from being a wife? You also have a purpose. So she could have done more for herself, but she didn't have time to do those things. So, and then she didn't have the support of the society and everyone around her. She was just trying and struggling to give her kids the best, but eventually she didn't even get the best for herself, and then eventually her kids never actually took care of her. So as a woman, you should aspire to be you. At some point, I aspire to do more. So I'm just trying to say, change your perception about things, grow out of your skin, do more for yourself, live a fulfilled life, dream for the impossible. There are possibilities. Like there are so many things that are possible. There are no impossibilities, and the fact that you could actually do more for yourself and inspire and fly and do anything you want to do, that was the same thing Nnu Ego wanted to give her children, and she made sure she actually did. So I think she was able to teach them that they should do more for themselves. So you have the right to dream and fly if you want to. That's basically what I learned from this book. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and visit our last video on the most misunderstood ideology in the world, that's feminism. So don't forget.